They say 75% of countries are overweight and obese. But also with the addiction that we have, we're not alone. But the problem is, and you know, that the advertisements, the way we were brought up in our society, through this addiction to food, 40, 50 years ago, people were maybe 30, 40 pounds less. I was reading something in 1970, they said the portion size was 30% less. So your brain is brainwashed by being a slave to the corporations. Is that what you want? So there's only one way out, though, and it's a perception change, and that's where we call in this program, we call it a spiritual awakening. Understand our joy and happiness is within here. We're looking again for it in the food, material things. When we have that perspective change, when we started to realize, and we do the steps in this program and having had that spiritual awakening, you got to realize, a lot of times people say, well, they're very spiritual and we have this awakening. But you know, the food is about everything. And everything is about our addiction to food. It could be drugs, alcohol, it could be people. Because it all comes down to the same thing, the ego. In relation to having more drugs, alcohol, food, we say, well, I got a great idea, I'll have more food. Or money, or success, or people in our lives. We say, well, I got one person who like me, maybe I could have 10. So the real joy, and that might be momentary pleasure. We can't deny food is our solution, or alcohol or drugs, because momentarily it is the solution. But on the other side is so much devastation. You know, this program is all about that. I mean, what good is it if you get off, say, drugs and alcohol, but you kill yourself with the food? And a lot of times, you know, I was in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and a lot of times it was we stopped drinking, we ate more, right? We got indulged in other things in life. There were other addictions that we went to because we were compulsive people. Again, a perception. And in this new pair of glasses, actually, the whole thing on page 418 and 419 in the big book, the chapter is called Acceptance is the Answer. And the whole thing with that new perception was it was talking about his wife Max in this chapter. And when he changed the perception, that was his whole marital. You know, you go to marital counseling and all of these things, and you have all these problems with people, relationships. Marriage is a relationship, like all relationships. And it says in here, when he had a new pair of glasses, he saw his wife differently. Accepted her, an acceptance. So here in life, and here with our addictions, it's all about the same thing. Because the healing power of this higher consciousness is just amazing. You don't always think of the body, how great it is and how God made us. Isn't it amazing when you get a cut and how it heals? It heals, right? By itself. If we get in the way and we try to heal it and fix it and whatever we do, we make it worse. But God has an answer to that, a solution. The same with our addictions. There is an answer, but we got to go inside to find it. We can't go to all of these diets and all of these ways through the intellect. The intellect is, has to do with the ego. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. The intellect is what got us here in the first place. The intellect is that made a decision to believe that, it's amazing when you watch an advertisement and they show songs and beautiful things related to the food, right? That's what you see on TV, and it's convincing you that that's the ultimate pleasure. That's where you find making food a higher power, a God of our understanding. It could be that, it could be people, it could be other things in life. So we have a solution here. Again, from the very beginning, they said there's only a spiritual solution. You could have the stomach surgery. You could go on all of these. You could take all the pills in the world. But it doesn't work unless we have the perception change. Also the diets. I was on a strict diet. I always talk about this. It's called the gray sheet diet for a whole year. Every day miserable. Finally that day came because you know what? It's interesting. When we make it all about the diet or all about losing a certain amount of weight, then when that doesn't become that important what happens, then we're miserable. But with the perception change, we can glorify and eating healthy. And the one thing I always bring up is the water because here alone, you want to really have a great way to lose that weight and to get out of the addiction, think of water and how beautiful and clarity of the water that God gave us. This is the really only drink that we have. The others are man-made, synthetic, and they have this has 0 calories. Actually, they say when you drink cold water, body has to absorb it, it takes away calories. So, but those drinks, imagine that they have 600, 1200. So our perception is to have a gloopy drink. That's our perception. We got the perception, right? But that is an insanity. We had to be restored to sanity. Realize the insanity of our thinking. Every time you drink a drink with 600 calories or 1,200 calories, that's insane. It wasn't meant to be that way. The body can't handle all that excess, whatever's in there, mainly sugars and stuff like that, but chemicals. You realize in diet sodas, not only you have the caffeine, which is a drug and a chemical that we're making a higher power, but also it has other chemicals in it that go in and stimulate the dopamine in the brain. It's not just the caffeine. They have, you look on the list there, those chemicals, through years of research, and they figured it out that they'll stimulate the brain to feel better. So we not only have the enhancement from the food itself, eating something wholesome when you have a meal, you feel a little better because you get the carbohydrates and sugar in your body, but also these are chemicals. And that's just diet soda. And every ingredient, food, if you read the ingredients, is 50 ingredients. A lot of those do the same thing, and I call them poison, and they are poison. Again, you want to eat healthy and right, just have the one ingredient. One ingredient in your food. How many more do you need? That's God-given. So we get centered. Again, I was saying that the abstinence with the food and the drugs and the alcohol, we have a better way. It's called the spiritual awakening, where we can have permanent joy and happiness. It's so momentary with our addictions. Not only is it momentary, it takes us away from the real truth, because you're saying it's all about the food. And why in a lot of philosophies and ways in religions do they fast? Because they realize it's a material thing. It's gluttonous, right? One of the 7 deadly sins. It's things of the flesh that take us away from spiritual thinking because we're making it all about the food. How many of us in our lives make it all about, it could be drug, alcohol, or foods? Not only that, and I always bring up, it could be other material things, or people, success, or money, or things like that. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. They say, how much harder is it for a rich person to enter the kingdom, to be happy and joyful, when they make it all about their money? Actually in life, the more success you have, the harder it is to be joyful and blissful, because you start to realize, like just famous people, they think, well, I feel great about this much success, then if I get more, I'll feel even better. But then they get really disappointed when it really doesn't bring that ultimate happiness, and then they get upset when they see somebody else, a little bit happier. So when we put it in material things, there's always going to be somebody more more money, more success, or things like that. It never fills it up, because it's a material thing, and the food is just the same thing. It took me a while to figure all this out. Figure out that the perception, and I have here a new pair of glasses, that when I look at the food, and I had the water here, when I look at it, it's got to be that perception change. I tell you, I want nothing more than that. Can you imagine that? That's all I want, and I wouldn't want, if you put one of those other drinks in front of me with the gloopy stuff in them, it's just like, my taste buds have been what's called educated to having something clear. Clarity, when you think about it, water is real clarity. It's life-giving. Water, some philosophies believe they get their nourishment from the sun or nature. You can't totally do that, but in a way, it's understandable, and from God's gift of the water. But when we're looking for the nourishment in what we were brainwashed by the corporations, we need a new pair of glasses. The old pair got all fogged up. And especially, you talk about analogy of the body, a lot of stuff they put in the foods make us to get addicted. The synthetic hydrogenated oils and sugars and all of this. They do research, billions of dollars worth of research. And then you got the diet companies. They come in and they give you the same poison in smaller morsels. So what good is that? It's like taking, just one drink if you're an alcoholic and saying, I'll be all right with that. It's poisonous food. It's amazing, though, if you really want to get down to it, a practicality, the ingredients they put in these foods are where all the calories are. The SOS, salt, oil, and sugar. Those are the calories. When people say, like, I'm whole food, plant-based, like a vegan type thing. But the people who eat all different ways, what I say here is that, first of all, it's what you put on the food. I don't care what type of diet you're on. It's up to you. But mainly, it's what you put on the food. So even if you're on what's called a high-protein diet, or low-carb, whatever it is, the foods you're eating, what's in there? These health energy bars you see in the stores or in the vending machines at health clubs, look at the ingredients. It's got like tons of ingredients, and that's where the calories are, the sweetest stuff. It ruins your palate. After a while, like now, if I have something, and I always talk about even Whole Foods, they have a salad bar there, but it's salt, oil, and sugar in there. So when you put that oil in, you see what happens to it. I usually talk a lot of spiritual things here, but the practical thing is this. Do you realize when you put a certain amount of calories of oil in your stomach, a tablespoon of oil, which is about this big, is 150 calories. But when you put that much, 150 calories of some whole, like I eat whole grains and foods like that, without stuff on it, could almost fill up the whole stomach. Salad, right? Do you realize a whole pound of salad is like 100 calories? But when you put the stuff on, it could be 1,200. You look on the menus in the restaurants and see what you're eating. You got to stay away from those restaurants, right? It's all just to make it taste good, but really, that good taste really isn't really wholesome taste. When you get away from that, the vegetables, the broccoli and stuff, I have a list of vegetables and stuff like that. They taste so delicious. Carrots and the cabbage and kale and all these snow peas, spinach, chard. I mean, there's a list. I eat a lot of vegetables and they taste so delicious. Carrots are amazing. And never mind the fruit. When you get away from that, you eat like an apple, orange, or fruit or whatever it is, you really taste it. But if I was to have a pastry beforehand, what good would it be? I mean, that's, flour and sugar we talk about. I usually don't get too much into this, but, I've done all the diets. And again, I'm a registered pharmacist. I know all about these chemicals and ingredients and all of that. But basically, there's only one solution. The synthetic knowledge is going to get us nowhere. Dr. Silkworth said that. Here we are almost 100 years later, and everybody knows here the synthetic knowledge of the doctors and scientists haven't found a cure for alcoholism, drug addiction. How about people addiction? I went for years and years trying to figure out, because when we're upset a lot, most of the time it's resentment towards people, to figure it all out. What would I say to people? How to be more assertive? I had self-help books on dieting and being a better person, whatever it was. Again, I found the solution in these steps, a 12-step program. Step 1, saying I'm powerless. That's a spiritual awakening right there. That's a spiritual awakening. When we go, the whole program the whole answer is in these steps. And it's step 12 says, having had that spiritual awakening. So step 1 tells me I'm powerless, but I was trying to control it. We want to talk about the food with the diets. Came to believe we had to be restored to sanity. I need that new pair of glasses. That's the topic today. New perspective. In other words, I had to think of things differently. I had to realize. But first of all, step 2, I had to realize I was insane. Again, that was a spiritual awakening. I always thought I knew all the answers, that everybody else, if the world would change and everything was different, I'd be fine. And then made a decision to turn our will in our lives. That's a perspective change too, because then all the patience, love, and tolerance comes in. In the 10-step promises, I want to hear everybody else hear what they have to say, so let me just quickly go to that. The 10-step promises it promises this. I'm telling you, when you work these steps and you work them in relation to all these things in your life, it comes true. And to me, it directly relates to the food. If you have the big book, page 85. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. Starts on page 84. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone. That was a new pair of glasses for me to have that realization. I didn't have to win the argument. I didn't have to fight anymore. I didn't have to figure out the things with my diet anymore. And it goes on to say, for by this time sanity will have returned. So we got to realize we're prisoners of those corporations just want to make the money. The real sanity is eating normal portions of food and also normal food. That's poison, those foods. Look at 50 ingredients on most everything in the supermarket. Look at the packaging. Those are poison. We will seldom be interested in liquor or overeating or food. And don't forget also, I want to mention too that in this program we call compulsion. People have a compulsion to resist. It also has to do with a new pair of glasses. They're trying to control things in their life, so they go to the food to control it. So trying to find the joy and happiness there. A lot of us are compulsive overeaters. If we recoil from as a hot flame, we got to realize, knowing the truth will set you free. This is a hot flame. Also, the truth is we don't need all this garbage. We will react sanely and normally. How to realize how insane we are. When you leave this meeting and you're drinking all of these big drinks with 1,000 calories, that's insanity. That's destroying your body. Your body's God's temple. Your joy and happiness isn't going to come from that. It's going to cause a lot of devastation in your life. Momentary pleasure. But the real, it never can compare the real natural foods. I glorify and love what I eat now. Wholesome natural foods. That's the perception change there. We'll find it happen automatically. We don't have to try anymore. We see our new attitude towards liquor or food has been given to us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. It's pretty amazing. Read this on page 85 in the big book. I thought they did this for alcoholism, but I think they directly did it towards this food addiction. That's the miracle of it. You know, before I didn't believe in miracles. I figured it had to be through the intellect and figuring out. But we can have a miracle. We can be put in a fourth dimension of existence, which we had not even dreamed of, right? It's amazing. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It's been removed. Root and branch. We are not afraid. That is our experience. So long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. If I'm in fit spiritual condition and I want to make my body God's temple and eat his natural wholesome foods, then I'm fine. But when I get into this, the ego, the self, and guilt, shame, all of these things, pride, it all has to do, it brings me back into the addiction of the material things of the flesh, right? All those things. And how many years ago, this book, people say this book is antiquated. It was written, 80, 90 years ago or so? How about the Bible, right? They've written 5,000 years ago, and they say in there, gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins. So they figured it out then. They figured out a spiritual principle would get you out of gluttony. But the other things are sloth, the pride, whatever it is, anger, greed, and gluttony is one of them. And being lazy, sloth. Step 11, when I'm scented, pray and meditate. It's done. What's called it's done. And I just know the truth that these foods are poisonous.